All right, buckle up, because today we're diving deep, deep into the world of wireless communication,
Oh, yeah.
but not the kind everyone talks about.
Right.
We're going behind the scenes
Okay.
into the often hidden realm of something called radiated spurious emissions,
Ah.
RSEs for short. Our mission today,
Yeah, where we?
to arm you with the knowledge, you need to understand what RSEs are
Okay.
and why they should matter to you.
Gotcha.
Think of this as like a
Yeah.
behind-the-scenes passport
I like it.
to how your devices behave in the wireless world.
The why behind the what.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, I'm sure you've experienced the pain of wireless interference firsthand, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Ever had a video call
Yeah.
bombed by that dreaded buzzing sound?
The worst.
Or maybe your Wi-Fi took an unscheduled break?
Yep.
Right as you were about to dominate
Happens all the time.
that online game?
Oh, yeah. Infuriating.
Yeah, those moments make you want to throw your router out the window.
Every time.
But before you do,
Right.
let's unravel
Yeah.
why those glitches actually happen.
Okay, let's do it.
So what exactly are these mysterious RSEs?
All right, so imagine you're listening to your favorite radio station, right? You're tuned in, enjoying the music, and then suddenly you hear these faint whispers from other stations.
Oh, like
Almost like,
ghostly signals.
yeah, ghostly signals bleeding through.
Okay.
Those, my friend, are spurious emissions.
Huh.
Unintended signals that a device emits.
So it's not just like random noise?
No, it's like these signals going rogue,
Interesting. So what makes them go astray then?
Well, you've got your usual suspects. One is harmonics.
Harmonics?
Yeah, multiples of the main frequency, like echoes of the main signal.
Echoes, okay.
Right, and then there's oscillations, unwanted variations in the signal. Imagine dropping a pebble in water.
Okay.
Those ripples spreading out.
Yeah.
That's your main signal. But then you also get those smaller ripples.
The unintended ones?
Exactly, bouncing back from the edges. Those, my friend, are your spurious emissions.
So these unintended ripples, these RSEs, what kind of chaos can they cause?
Oh, man, more than you might think. We're talking satellite TV glitches, Wi-Fi dropouts.
Really?
Oh, yeah, even problems with those critical communication systems we rely on.
You mean like...
Like emergency services, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Remember those dropped calls we talked about? RSEs could be the culprit.
Okay, now those drop calls are feeling a lot more sinister. So we've got these potential troublemakers, these RSEs, running amok in the wireless world.
Yeah?
Who steps in to make sure they don't turn our connected lives into a free-for-all?
Right, we need some rules, right?
Exactly.
So in the world of wireless, we've got two major players, the sheriffs of the electromagnetic spectrum, you could say.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
In the U.S., we have the FCC calling the shots.
Right, the FCC.
And over in Europe,
Yeah.
it's ETSI.
Two different continents, two different rule books?
That's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Both the FCC and ETSI, they have the same goal in mind. Minimize interference.
Right, of course.
Keep our wireless experience, smooth.
Gotcha.
But they have their own ways of getting there.
Interesting. Different paths to the same destination.
Exactly.
So give me the lay of the land here. What are some of the key differences in how they approach this RSE testing?
Well, one major difference is the testing environments themselves.
Okay.
The FCC, they're a bit more relaxed.
Really?
Yeah, they're like, just use your typical 3-meter EMC chamber, the standard setup.
So the FCC is all about keeping it real world.
Pretty much. They even have guidelines for what the expected background noise levels in those chambers should be.
Interesting. So what about ETSI?
ETSI, on the other hand, they're a bit more, shall we say, particular.
Particular how so?
They don't just dictate the size of the chamber.
Yeah.
They're all about that absorber reflectivity.
Absorber reflectivity. That sounds intense.
It is. They want those chambers to be super quiet, like a radio dead zone.
To make sure they're getting the most precise readings.
Exactly. No stray signals sneaking in.
Wow, so it's like a recording studio, but instead of soundproofing, it's like signal proofing.
Precisely. And the differences don't stop there.
Oh.
Remember those bandwidth settings we talked about?
Yeah.
Those specific frequency ranges?
Right.
ETSI, they lay down the law, very precise settings for RBW and VBW.
RBW, VBW?
Yeah, those control the resolution and video bandwidth.
So they're basically controlling how much detail the equipment captures.
It's like ETSI wants to see those RSEs in high definition, while the FCC is okay with a standard def view.
Interesting. So different levels of detail.
Exactly. And of course, it wouldn't be a regulatory showdown without some differences in limits.
Right, the maximum allowable levels of RSE.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
ETSI, they often go with a fixed limit, usually around 9 over 30 dBmm.
So it's like, this is the line in the sand, don't cross it.
Pretty much. The FCC, they're a bit more nuanced. Their limits are based on the transmitting power of the device.
So the more powerful the device.
The tighter the restrictions.
Interesting approach, makes sense.
It's all about finding that balance, you know?
Right. Allowing innovation, but preventing chaos.
Exactly.
But let's get down to brass tacks. We've talked about the who and the why of RSE testing.
Right.
Walk me through the how. What's actually happening in one of these tests?
Okay, so picture this. You're in a special room, an anechoic chamber.
Anechoic chamber.
Yeah, it's designed to absorb all reflections.
Oh.
It's eerily quiet in there, like being in a soundproof booth.
Yeah.
But for radio waves,
Interesting.
you've got the device being tested, all hooked up, ready to transmit.
Okay.
And around it, you've got antennas strategically placed.
Like detectives trying to pick up any stray signals,
Exactly. And those signals get fed into a spectrum analyzer.
which basically displays those rogue emissions, right?
You got it.
So they fire up the device and wait for something to show up.
Well, it's a bit more involved than that, especially for the FCC's handset testing.
Okay.
They have a whole step-by-step process, starting with configuring the spectrum analyzer just right.
Oh, makes sense.
Then they measure emissions at different heights, different angles.
Really?
Oh yeah, a full 360-degree sweep.
To make sure no signal goes undetected.
Exactly. It's like a carefully choreographed dance of measurements and adjustments.
Wow, very cool. So it's not just point and shoot.
Not at all.
It's this whole intricate process.
And we haven't even touched on the specialized equipment involved.
There's more.
Oh yeah, they use things like notch filters to cut out the main transmission.
So they can zero in on the spurious emissions?
Exactly. It's like using noise-canceling headphones, but for radio waves.
Wow. Blocking out the main event to hear the whispers in the background.
It's pretty amazing how much goes in to making sure our devices work seamlessly.
It really is. Speaking of complexity, pre-test calibration.
Right.
And it sounds like there's some debate around it. What's that all about?
Pre-test calibration. A hot topic indeed.
Okay.
Essentially, it's all about making sure the measurements they're taking are incredibly accurate.
Incredibly accurate. Okay.
Yeah, they're taking into account any quirks in the testing environment itself.
Quirks. What kind of quirks?
Well, imagine you're trying to measure a piece of fabric, right?
Okay.
But the ruler you're using is slightly warped.
You're not going to get an accurate measurement.
Exactly. Pre-test calibration is like making sure that ruler is perfectly straight.
I see. So it's about calibrating the tools
Exactly.
to ensure everything is aligned.
Precise.
How does that actually work in practice?
So basically, they radiate a known signal through the setup,
Okay.
measure how it's received,
Right.
and that allows them to create a correction factor.
So it's like fine-tuning an instrument.
Exactly. This correction factor accounts for any variations, the cables, antennas, even the chamber itself.
So it's all about eliminating uncertainty in those final measurements.
Precisely. But as with anything, there are different schools of thought on the best approach.
Interesting. So where does the debate come in? Why wouldn't everyone be on board with this if it makes things more accurate?
Right.
So this pre-test calibration thing sounds like a good idea on the surface, but some are hesitant, huh?
Yeah, the FCC, they've voiced some concerns.
Really? But if it makes the testing more accurate, why wouldn't they be all for it?
Well, they haven't outright banned it, but they've made it clear, not yet officially recognized.
So not a no, but not a yes either, more of a proceed with caution.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So what are their concerns?
One thing is the potential for complexity.
Complexity, how so?
This pre-test calibration, it can create a ton of correction factors for different devices,
Okay.
different setups.
So making sure the right correction factor is applied to the right test could get messy.
Exactly, managing all that data.
And you need to make sure it's consistent across different labs too, right?
Absolutely. Consistency is key in this game.
Makes sense.
You want to make sure a device tested in one lab will meet the same standards in another.
Of course. So it sounds like pre-test calibration is still finding its footing,
Yeah, I'd say so.
a potentially powerful tool, but one that needs careful consideration and maybe some standardization.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that even in a field as technical as this, there's always room for discussion, evolution.
Finding that sweet spot, right.
Exactly.
Well, this deep dive has been fascinating.
It has, hasn't it?
I feel like we've gone on a behind-the-scenes tour of this invisible world.
It's incredible all this is happening all around us.
Right, and we don't even realize it.
All this work going on to make sure our wireless world runs smoothly.
It really makes you appreciate those moments when everything just works.
It really does.
When your Wi-Fi is strong, calls are crystal clear.
The best.
So next time you're streaming your favorite show or connecting with someone across the globe, take a moment to appreciate the unseen heroes of RSE testing, working behind the scenes to keep our wireless world humming.
Hear, hear.
It's been a pleasure diving in with you today.
Likewise, always a good time talking about all things RSE.
Until next time.
See you then.